Welcome back to my channel, Everything Educator Related. Please go ahead and check out my last video, how to prepare for the FTC General Knowledge Reading Exam. It's right here. So please go and check that video out. I basically talked about some websites you could use to prepare for the FTC General Knowledge Reading Exam. Also, before we get into the video, please press the subscribe button if you have not already been subscribed. If these videos are helping you, please press the subscribe video to encourage me to make more, because I've been giving you a lot of good tips. And please press the like button as well, because it's really going to help me to continue doing these types of videos for you guys. So so the video today, we're going to get into our basically some essentials you need to know before taking the FTC General Knowledge Reading Exam. So the first thing we're going to go into is I'm going to show you guys the FTC website. This is the exam you use to register for the exam and find everything you need to know. Now, the reason why I'm on this website is because I want to show you the tutorial, because the tutorial is going to help me to show you a lot of things. So first you're going to click resources, then you're going to go to CBT tutorials. I don't know why my tongue is being twisted today. Then you're going to go to standard multiple choice tutorial. Now this tutorial basically shows you how the exam, how you're going to maneuver the exam. So this is a general overview. I'm not going to go over every single thing here because we have other things to get into. Okay, so when you go into the exam, they're going to show you this tutorial. So it's basically a reminder. When you go into the exam, please remember, read the tutorial and try to get familiar with it, because this is what you're going to look at before the exam actually starts. So they're not going to time you while you're looking at the tutorial. The exam begins when you click begin, but the person there will tell you what to do. So, but you could just take a look at this before you take the exam, so you are a bit familiarized. So this is how it's going to look at the top part when you go to click your exam. And they're just giving you some examples of how the exam is going to be set up, basically. So you can do them, I guess, if you want, just to familiarize yourself. But for example, question 1, you're going to have question 1, you're going to see the multiple choice, you're going to click next. But this is not what I want to show you today. And this is for like English. The reading is set up different. So as it says, moving from question to question, you click next, and to go back to the previous question, you press previous. You can click, I think there's a button on, you're going to click here if you want to see the time. So when you go into the exam, if you want to see how much time you have left or to keep it there, because you can hide the time, but I'd advise you to press the time button here so you could see the time, how much time you have left and everything. Okay, so this is what I really want to show you, the marking a question button. So whenever you want to say go back to a question, you're going to press the mark button. So this is what you're going to click. So say you want to go from question 1 and then question 2, and then when you're at question 3, you don't understand question 3, so you want to go back to that question, but you don't want to spend time on question 3 if you don't know it. So you press the mark button to get back to it later. So you press the mark, you skip that. It's like skipping the question, but marking it so you can come back to it, basically. So once you click and go to the next question, you are going to In order to review that question, you're going to press the review button. And once the review button is up, you're going to see something like this. Now, only one of them, not two, just one. Now you're going to see which question you have marked. So if you press this little tick button here, you're going to see view marked questions. So you press it to see all the questions you have marked. So I marked number 3. So you're going to see the question number 3 and you're going to see X marked. However, if I did not answer that question, you wouldn't see the X right here, if you get what I'm saying. So it would basically look like this. I'll put my arrow over it so you can know. So I would press 3 and then it would instantly go back to 3. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because I'm going to advise you to use a mark button while going through the exam, because it is very important. Now, you can look at the tutorial on your own time, but I want to show you how the reading exam specifically is set up. It's in the tutorial. So, okay, here it is. So for the reading exam, it is a split screen. So you're going to see the passage is going to be up here and the sidebar is going to be here for you to roll it. And then you're going to have the question at the bottom. Now you can click through. The passage is always going to be up here. It's not going to move or anything, but the questions are going to move. So you're going to click next, and you'll see the different questions. I'll show you an example. I wanted to show you guys, this is how the exam will be set up, where you're going to be able to move the passage up and down with the sidebar, and then you'll have the questions at the bottom. Sorry, this has only 4 questions, but in the example, in what I mentioned earlier with the mark button, say I want to answer this question. I'd answer this question because I'm comfortable with it. Then I click next. Say I don't want to answer this question because it's hard. I'm going to mark it. And then when I mark it, I'll be able to move on to the other question. But if I wanted, at the end, I want to review that question, I would go to the review button that I showed you, and then I would press back. I will press number 3 under review, as I showed you guys earlier. Also, you can press, say this was 10 questions, you can press the back button to go back. But I would say just mark it because it's much easier to go to the review button and then press, for example, number 3 to go back, because it easily identifies the question that you want to go back to. If you check out my video where I showed you the apps, I showed you how exactly it's set up, but I'll insert it in this. Okay, so now is the time to get into the essentials. So essential number 1 is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the exam. The exam has 40 questions on it, and you have to finish that exam within 55 minutes. So the reason why you're seeing the numbers on here, I wanted to give you a little outline, because many of you might think that 40 questions is a lot. So I want you to picture it like this, so you don't get nervous or, worried. So it's like doing 10 questions 4 times. So there's no need to get nervous. So compared to the other exams, the other certification exams, you might get 150 questions. So this isn't really a lot. So you guys can do it. So you have, as I said before, you have 55 minutes to complete this exam. So as you go through the exam, you want to keep track of the time. Make sure you, as I showed you earlier in the video, make sure your time button is on so you could see how much time you have left. And you'd have to go through the passages quickly so that you don't run out of time, and you don't want to spend a long time on one question. Okay, so you're gonna have about 4 to 5 passages on the exam. 2 short passages, and the most you get is 2 short passages, and then the other ones would mostly be long passages. So this leads me to essential number 2. you're going to start the exam. So as soon as you click begin, you're going to start by going through the questions. That is from question 1 right to question 40. You ever heard the people say you should look at the questions before you start the exam? This is what we're doing. So you want to go through it so that you know how much passages they have given you on the exam. And as I said, you can either get 4 to 5 passages. Now, while you're going through the questions and while you're seeing how much questions is for each passage, because you might get, don't quote me on this, but for the first passage, you probably get 15 questions. For the second passage, you might get less or more. So it depends. So you can't really necessarily say one passage 1 will be 10 questions, passage 2, 10 questions. No, it really depends. It's not just one way. So while going through the questions, so number 1, number 2, while going through it, please make sure to mark the question by which each passage begins. So what do I mean by this is you start at number 1 and say the first passage ends at question 10. This is just an example. Press the mark button for question 11 because that's where the other passage starts. So if the first passage question begins at 1 and it goes right up to 10, meaning these are questions that has to do with the first passage, then you mark number 11 in which passage 2 begins so that you can easily come back to it. This will make sense as I go through the rest of this, but please press the mark button when you reach at the beginning of a passage. So if the first passage ends at question number 10, you're going to press the mark number for. Once you click next and you reach question number 11, you press the mark button. If you reach the third passage and say the third passage is at question number 25, that's the starting of a new passage with questions for that passage. You're going to press the mark button. So after you have done that, while you're going to the exam, you are going to be answering questions that you don't have to read the whole passage for. So you're doing everything. All of this that I'm mentioning, you're doing it at the same time. So you're going from question 1 to 40, and while going from question 1 to 40, you're marking where each passage begins. You're marking where each passage begins for the question. So as I said, if the second passage begins at question 11, you are going to mark question 11. And the third thing that you will be doing is answering the question. So you reach at number 1, you reach at number 2, right up to number 9, and you see that the question is a vocabulary question. So I'm going to say, while going through the questions, answer these types of questions, meaning vocabulary questions. So without reading the passage, you're going to try to answer the vocabulary questions you come across while going through each question 1 through 40. So you're not reading while going through question 1 through 40 at the beginning of the exam. You are not reading the passage. You're not doing nothing. You're just reading the questions first, getting a glimpse of each question first. You're marking where each passage begins. But I would advise you to do the questions that does not require you reading the passage while you're going through 1 through 40. So you're going to look for the vocabulary questions. If you come across one, you go in the passage real quick. And it says, for example, as used in line 35, the word convoluted most nearly means. So you would not run, but you would go to line 35 in the passage. As I showed you, it moves up and down. So you just scroll the sidebar and you look for line 35 and you're going to look for this word and you're going to use your context clues. I might make a video on how to answer vocabulary questions, but it's basically using context clues. So you're going to read that little part. If it's a little paragraph, you can start at the beginning. If it's going to take a lot of time, don't. Just use the words that surrounds the vocabulary word, because usually it gives you context clues. Or you could try replacing that word. So instead of saying, if you're reading out the sentence, instead of saying convoluted, you put possible to see if it makes sense, or precise, or interesting, or crazy. So what I'm trying to say here is use your context clues to try to figure out what the word means. I'm not saying you're going to do this question. You're just making it easier for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're going to see this question again when you're ready to read the whole passage. So when you're ready to read the whole passage now, you're going to like basically review that question. But you already know that you already answered it, but you're just reviewing it, if you get what I'm saying. So these are the other examples of the types of vocabulary questions. On any exam, you might see these types of vocabulary questions. Now, the next thing you want to answer, other from vocabulary questions, are questions that direct you to the exact part of the paragraph. So these can easily be answered as well, because you're basically using the information that's there, because they want to know what's going on in that exact paragraph. So you don't have to read the whole passage to be able to answer these type of questions. Likewise, the vocabulary question. You're trying to knock out the questions that you can answer without reading the whole passage. So for example, the statement in lines 45 to 40, line 44 to 45 most strongly suggests that the down home diner. So you will look to lines 44 to 45 and you're going to see what it mostly suggests. The statement in lines 44 to 45 most suggests that the down home diner. So you can see that this is talking about the down home diner. So once you go to that line, you're going to see what it's saying about down home diner, and you're going to try to guess what it suggests. While doing these types of questions, please do not spend the whole time. You are just quickly overviewing the exam. You haven't started taking the exam yet. You're just overviewing the questions 1 through 40, so you have an easy field of what type of questions you're answering and how to get from each passage, and marking the questions, where the questions begin for each passage as you go along. So here are another ones. The main purpose of the third paragraph, lines 20 to 33. So you go to lines 20 to 33 and you'll see what's the purpose. If it sounds like it's persuading, then you put persuading. In this case, if it sounds like it's establishing that the author is not in fact an expert, you put that. If it's explaining something, you put that. If it's reminding the reader of something, if it's expressing disdain, you put that. So it is something that I believe you can do once you're starting to overview the questions. This should be done quickly. Do not spend a lot of time on this, because remember, you have other questions to get to. Remember, you haven't read the passage just yet, the whole passage just yet. So okay, so once you have reached to question 40, meaning you have went through each question quickly, you have answered vocab questions or questions that are easy to answer without reading the whole passage. Once you've done that, once you've marked where each passage begins, at which question a new passage begins, once you have done all of that, you're going to click the review button to see where you marked the beginning of the last passage. So we're moving backwards. We're taking the test backwards. We're not taking the test from number 1. We're taking the test from the last passage on the test. So if the last passage on the test starts at question 30, you remember, you marked question 30 because it was the beginning of a new passage. So you're going to go to the review button and you're going to press 30. and it will take you to 30 instead of you pressing the back button from 40, going 40, 39, 38, 37. No, that's why we have the review button, so you could easily find it. So you're going to find it, you're going to press 30, and that's where you're going to start your exam. You're going to definitely start your exam now. You're reading the passage, and remind you, all of this is happening in split seconds. This is happening quickly, because you don't want time to run out on you, because you have to read the passage and you have to try to answer the questions correctly. Okay, so you already know what questions 30 to 40 is looking like, because you already read it. So you already know what they're looking for. Okay, so when you read the passage, you're going to have an idea of, what type of questions they're asking you, because you already read the questions. So that's why they always ask you to read the questions before you read the passage, so you know what you're going to get, what they're asking you for, in other words. So once you read the passage, you start. Number 30, try to answer the question. Number 31, try to answer the question, and you go onwards. Once you're finished with you're finished reading the last passage of the test, you move on to the fourth passage. So if it's 5 passages, you move on to the fourth passage, meaning the one before this one that you're reading. Now, the reason why I ask you to go backwards or start the exam from backwards is because the shorter passages are usually at the back, so it's easier to knock those out. When you're taking the exam, as you take the exam, do not spend a lot of time on the question you do not understand. You're going to make use of the mark button again. So if you're going from question 30 to 40, the last passage, and you don't understand question 35, you're going to mark question 35, and you're going to go back to question 35 after you finish answering. You go through each passage, you answer as much questions as you can. So if you didn't answer 35, you're going to mark question 35 with the mark button, and then click the review button, and you go back to question 35. As I said before, earlier in the video, I showed you, it gives you an option to see all the marked questions, or if you want to see every question from 1 through 40, and it will show you if that question was answered or if it was not answered. So the review button is very important. Okay, so once again, mark the question and get back to it later. Always keep track of the time while taking the exam. The worst thing is to run out of time. And trust me, 55 minutes runs by so quickly, you would be shocked. So you want to go through this exam as quickly as possible. So once you've went through all your passages, meaning you took the short, you worked from backwards, you answered all your short questions right up to the longer passages with the questions, and you have a few left back where you have marked. Once you finish all of that and you finish answering majority of the questions, and you went through each passage, as I just repeated myself a while ago, 1 through 40, you are going to press the review button, go to the ones that you marked, because by this time, hopefully, you have not run out of time. You probably have like 5 minutes left or something, hopefully 2 minutes. Use that time to try to answer the ones that you marked, the ones that you didn't get to, the ones that you didn't understand. So as soon as you're finished from the passage 5 right up to passage 1, the first number 1 question, you're going to go, and you have time. You should have time left back, hopefully, if you went through it quickly and you tried to do it correctly. You're going to go back to the questions that you marked. And once you are finished going over the questions that you marked and you did those, you completed those, so now they're answered, you're going to go over the whole test, 1 through 40. So if you have like 1 minute left or something, you can try to hurry up and go to all questions. Just a little preview, just a view over. It's like, like you're just reviewing your work. Nothing. No, not really doing any changes, just reviewing. So every minute count in this exam. So you want to make sure you are really keeping track. Remember, the goal of this exam is not to get 100%, but it is to get a passing mark. You either see a pass or a fail. No, sorry, a pass or a not pass on the paper when you're finished with the exam. And everybody wants to see a pass. So the goal is not to get 100%. The goal is to see a pass on that paper. And in order to see a pass on that paper, you have to get at least 30 out of 40 questions right. In other words, you can only get 10 questions wrong. So that is getting 75% on the exam. They don't score you like this. It's usually you need a 200 or more. But in our percentile grading, it would be 75%. You need a 75% to pass. So hopefully you guys learned something from all the information I just gave. I probably won't be making any more videos because you guys are not subscribing. You guys are not liking or commenting. I don't know if you are learning something from my videos. I don't know. So please, if you want me to make more videos like this, please do me a favor and encourage me. Subscribe. I want to see at least one new subscriber. If you want me to continue making these videos, I want to see at least one. At least one like, at least one comment. I don't bite people. You can ask me questions in the comments. I have taken the exam. I am knowledgeable. So you please feel free to comment something. I will answer you. I will very much answer you. So thanks again for watching my video. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. So I will see you in the next one, guys. Take care.